In this video, we will cover what is ngFor structure directive, and we will also do a practical and use ngFor and TrackBy property in Angular application. So let's start the video.
Hello friends, welcome to our channel WaveTutorials, and you are watching AngularJS full tutorial session. And also I request you to, if you have still not subscribed to our channel, then please subscribe to it and don't forget to click on that notification bell icon. So let's start with today's session.
ngFor structure directive is a directive which is used to repeat given HTML template based on value received from an array. Each time the value received, it binds the values with DOM. For example, if we add ngFor with a div, then this div will get repeat till we have collection in this array object. Also, we can use few local variables with ngFor like index, which will return the index of current element in iteration. First will return the first element if the current element is first element in iteration. The last will return if the current element is a last element in iteration. The same way, even and odd will return the current element is either even or odd based on the index in iteration. With ngFor, TrackBy will be used whenever we interact with the performance improvement of page. TrackBy property help Angular to track the added, updated or removed object in DOM. Actually, whenever we load a lots of data using ngFor, it may impact a performance of the page. So to get only the updated, added or removed object, we need to use the TrackBy option. So to use it, we need to create a TrackBy function which will accept two arguments. You can see here that it will accept first argument is the index and second one is the current object, and it will return the unique ID or any unique value from that object. Now let's open Visual Studio Code and see practical examples with ngFor and TrackBy option. Here I already set up a project for us, and the project is right now running on localhost port 4200. So let's open first of all the source file of app.component.ts, and before we show data in ngFor, we have to create array of objects. So let's create a variable like employees of any type and set default blank array, and in constructor let's add few default values to this object. So let's employee ID 101, then set name equal to William, then set its age as 30. So let's make copy of this object. Now we have created an array object of employees, and now let's open HTML file. Let's close this explorer, and so let's create a table element to show the employee data on a table. So first of all, table, and set a head tr here and set thead th here. First is employee ID, then the second column is name, third one is age. The same way, let's create table row and display td element in it. Now we have to repeat this tr till we have data in our employee object. So for this, let's use here ngFor, and let's create a variable let item of employees. So let's copy this variable, and using interpolation, let's display item dot id, so which is this id, employee id, item dot name, and then the same way item dot age. Let's save it. You can see that the data is showing here using ngFor, and the formatting of this table is already set in CSS. So now let's check what if we don't have any data in employee object. So let's get another table row here and create a one TD element, and we need to set a single value instead of three columns here. So for this we need to set call span of this TD to 3, and let's write it no records, and here we need to use ngIf directive. So let's write ngIf equal to, if we don't have any object like employees or employees dot length is equal to 0, then no records will show. Let's save it. And in source code, let's comment these records. Now we don't have any record in employee object, then it will show the no records row. Now the other requirement is we need to show it in a center aligned. So for this we can use ng style here, like ng style, and set a style like text align to center. Let's save it. And you can see that we are using ng style here to make it center aligned. So now let's use the other local variables like index, first, last, even, and odd. For this we need to use semicolon here, and let's type it in a new line, and let's declare a variable let index of element equal to index. Index is a reserve keyword which will return the index of current element. We already discussed in our presentation slide. The same way, let's declare another variable first element and set its value first. Let last element and set its value to last. The same way, let even element and set its value to even. Let odd element and set its value to odd, semicolon. So now we have to use this, which row is even, odd, or which one is the first element or the last element. So also we will use the index of element. So for this we need to add few other columns here. One is for index, and let's also set this index of element here. Using the same way, let's add another two heads one for even or odd element, and another one is first or last element. So here we are going to use ngIf directive again. So in TD, let's use two span elements and use ngIf. Now in this variable first element we have the first element either true or false. Now if it's a first element, then display first element, and if it's not first element, or you can say it's a last element, then display last element on grid. The same way we can check even and odd. Even element, and then write even, and for odd element type odd. Now you can see that we have increased the columns 4, 5 and then 6 column. Now we have to increase this call span as well. Now let's save it. We also have to remove or uncomment these objects. Let's save it again. And you can see that here we have added the index which start from the 0, and here this element is an event element, and this is also an even element. So here there is something missing. Let me check. Out element, we type here off instead of odd, so odd. Let's save it again. And you can check here that it's an odd element. So now the next option is what is TrackBy. So let's create an example of TrackBy using the same HTML and source code. So first of all, let's create a scenario where we need to import few another records in this grid. For this, let's create a method here like get employees, get all employees, and let's make a copy of this variable and also add few another records here. Let's add two more records, change the name Jack and Mark, also change their employee ID 104 and 105. Let's also change their age 28, and let's make Mark age as 29. So let's save it, and to call this method we need a button here which will execute a click event. So for this, let's create a div, and inside this div create a button, and the text of button is get all employees. And also let's apply a class to this button, like so. Let's apply ng class here, ng class button, and create a click event here. Get all employees. Let's save it. Also let's set a br, a break element here. Now you can see here that by default at initial level we loaded only 3 elements, and when I click on get all employees, it will load few another records. Actually it loads again the 5 record, but it actually load all the records in this grid. So let me show you why I would require a TrackBy. So let me open the inspect element by right click on it and click on inspect. So here you can see that, let's reload it to its default values, and you can see here that in body, in this table we have 4 rows. First one is for the header and rest of 3 for the data. And when I click on get employee, please notice here that, let me click here, it load all the 5 rows here, which means when I click on get employee, it load all the 5 records on this page, which will be improved by TrackBy, because as a performance point of view we need to load only those records which are newly added or updated or removed. So for this we have to use the TrackBy option. So let's create a function which I discussed in a presentation slide, that we need to create a function which will accept 2 parameters. So first of all, let's create a function TrackBy employees. You can choose any name of your wish, and the first parameter should be the index, which will receive the current index of employee object. It should be of number. And second one is the current item, like the current employee, it should be of any type. And let's return employee, this variable dot emp id, because here employee id is a number, then we have to make its return type as number. Now here we are going to track the employee using the employee id instead of object reference, and we are going to use this function to track our employee object. Let's save it, copy this name, and let's open the HTML file and write a property TrackBy and paste the name of the method TrackBy and close it with semicolon. Now let's save it. Now let me show you this. Now we have all the default records here in this grid. Now let's check this, and you can see that we have 4 rows here. Or now when I click on get all employees, it will actually execute the TrackBy employee method and will load only those records which are newly added, because we are now added 2 more records in this grid. So now let me click here, and you can see here only 2 records will get highlighted, which means that only 2 records are loaded in this page instead of all the records. Now second option is, what if we got any updations in above 3 records? What will happen? Will it remove all the records? Will it remove only the single record, or will it change only that particular changed value? So let's create another method where we will update a single age of any of this employee. So let's create a copy of this method, and here let's change, first of all let's remove one employee and also change its age to 31 and rename it to update employee. Save it. Copy the name of this method and create another button here. Now we have two buttons here. So first of all, let's save it. So you can see here that by default we have loaded only 3 elements in this grid, 3 records in this grid. And when I click on get all employee, it will add to another record in this grid. And when I click on update employee, it will remove one, or you can say it will only add one record or remove one record and also update this age. So first of all, let's click on all these buttons, and when I click on get all employee, it added to another record. When I click on update employee, it will remove this record, the 4th record, and also update its age from 30 to 31. So you can see here. So now let's reload to its default data and open the elements here in console. Let's expand the table. Now please notice that when I click on get all employee, it will highlight only 2 records here. That means only the updated or added record loaded on this grid. Now when I click on update, it will only remove this record and will update only this value in this cell instead of removing all the rows. So for this I have to expand it. Here you can see that its current value is 30. Now let me click on. Now you can see that only one row is removed and the data is changed from 30 to 31. Only this cell is get changed. So this is the beauty of TrackBy property. In this session we have covered ngFor directive and local variables with ngFor. Also we have covered TrackBy property with ngFor with multiple examples. If you have any query, please write a comment in comment box, or you can also write to me at wavetutorials@outlook.com. I also request you to, if you have still not subscribed to our channel, then please subscribe to it and also like this video. My name is Naveen and thank you for watching this tutorial.